It was the book that first caught his attention. The woman came later. To come across someone reading one of his favourite novels was rare. It's not like it was Harry Potter or The Notebook. To come across someone reading James M. Cain's The Postman Always Rings Twice was rare. Billy walked towards the woman who sat reading at the table by the door. Just so you're not disappointed, The Postman never does come knocking. Nevertheless, it's a great book. I know, the woman said without looking up, her nose still stuck in the book. Mind if I sit? Billy asked, putting his cup down on the table. As the cup hit the table, the woman lowered her book and looked up at him. Maybe I should get back to work. I mean, with it being so busy and all that our customers have nowhere to sit, the woman said, staring up at Billy. Billy picked up his cup and looked around, feeling more than a bit awkward. It's okay. You can sit down. I'm just messing with you, the woman said, smiling. Her light brown eyes danced mischievously, and Billy stood there for a long moment as his breath caught in his throat and his mouth went dry. What, have you changed your mind? She asked. Billy sat down, pushing in his chair and placing his items on the table. Billy began. William Washington. I'm Eva, the woman said, cutting him off. You know who I am? Billy asked, genuinely surprised. Of course. You wrote Killing Mr. Grey, the best-selling novel of 2016. It wasn't the best. Well, one of the biggest. According to what it states on the cover of your paperback editions, you've sold 3 million copies worldwide, Eva said, folding the corner of her page and putting her book aside. Everyone has one good story in them. It's having a second, and maybe even a third, that counts, he said dryly. Are you working on anything of late? Eva asked, biting into her muffin. It would seem that I have only the one. I feel like Vanilla Ice or MC Hammer. Hell, they may be remembered for only one hit, but at least they had other songs that made the charts. I only have one book. I was thinking earlier today that I'm a third-rate Harper Lee, and even she wrote more than one book. Go Set a Watchman was just a cash grab, if you ask me, Eva said. That may be so, but my point is that she had something else to write. I've been racking my brain for something decent. If and when I do think of something half-decent to write about, a few chapters in, I find out it's a load of crap. Have you ever thought of writing a prequel to Killing Mr. Grey? A prequel? Yeah, the woman said, leaning forward excitedly, her eyes bright. Think about it. Killing Mr. Grey was about a love square among friends who had actually been enemies for a long time, right? Well, you can... Eva, your break's over, the woman from behind the counter called. 1 minute, Eva called, looking at her boss and then back at Billy. Think about it. You tell us what happens to lead up to the murder, and we find out why it happened, but not how, or really when. I think you should let us see when and how their love for each other turned to hate. You know? Billy began, but was cut off when Eva's boss called her again. This time she held up her hand with her wristwatch on it. Sorry, I have to go because we are so busy that the last customer who got served I've been talking to for the last 5 minutes. You know, as soon as I finish my degree, I'm leaving this dump. I'm off to Hollywood. You going to be a screenwriter? Eva shook her head. Makeup artist. But if the makeup thing falls through, who knows? After all, I think I just came up with an idea for a bestseller. I owe you, he said, smiling. I'll take 20%. I was thinking more along the lines of a dedication. That too. Unlike most, I don't just buy my cake and let it sit there. You know, I've never understood that phrase. Me neither. I don't understand most of them. But listen, it was nice talking to you. I hope I've given you something to write about, Eva said, smiling at him. More than enough. I'm sure you'll see your name in print pretty soon, he said, watching as Eva gathered up her cup, saucer, and book. And a check in the mail, she said, winking at him. She turned, and Billy watched her walk away, observing her slim but shapely hips sway from side to side. He sat there, dumbfounded that in 5 minutes He just had a better conversation with her than he'd had in 6 months of dating Natasha. Billy tore the plastic film from his notebook and began making notes. Billy's cup of hot chocolate sat untouched as it went from hot to warm to undrinkable. He worked his pen across and down the page, ideas flowing like a tap that couldn't be turned off. He stayed hunched over his notebook, filling page after page. He didn't notice Eva smiling every time she glanced in his direction while she delivered food or wiped a table. Billy filled 5 pages of notes before he was satisfied that he'd written enough. He closed his notebook, put the cap back on the pen, and stood up. Picking up his cup, Billy made his way over to the counter where the owner stood serving a customer. Eva was wiping down the top of the glass display counter. "Thank you," Billy said, holding out the cup. Eva took it from him with a smile, which faded as she saw the contents had not been touched. "Was there something wrong with it?" she asked as Billy turned to walk away. Billy turned back to face her and shrugged his shoulders. "I wouldn't know, other than it's way too cold to drink," he said with a smile. "1 second," Eva said, holding up one finger, indicating for him to wait, and she turned and quickly busied herself with making him a fresh one. "You don't have to do that." "Well, I suppose it was your fault," Billy said jokingly, as Eva poured hot water into the paper cup and mixed it up with a wooden stirrer. She put a plastic lid on it and turned back to face him, holding it out for him to take. "I would pay," Billy said as he caught the grim look on the face of Eva's boss. "It's just that I don't have any cash on me." "It's all right. I don't want my customers leaving unsatisfied," she said with that weak smile of hers. "Thanks, Eva," Billy said, raising the cup almost as in a toast. "I'm glad the other cafe was full." "Me too," Eva replied, smiling. There was a long silence before Billy realized he was standing there a bit too long. "Bye," he said, feeling a bit awkward as he turned and walked out of the cafe.